The Joblot era coming to a close today. Well, for this specific Joblot, I'll still be looking for opportunities to buy bulk Lego in general, but these charts and numbers are corresponding to the Joblot that I've been covering in our playlist, in our series here over the past year and some change. Something I bought late in 2020. Throughout 2021, it was kind of an ongoing project, and there was a little bit of a push to get it done by the end of the year last year. Didn't quite get there, but now I do have it wrapped up, and I have some results to share today in the form of some data visualization. So hopefully you guys are on board with that. If you're just here for the bricks, I might want to skip this one. We're not going to see a whole lot of that today, but I do like to look at the numbers behind these things and just get an idea overall, how does this compare to some of the other stuff I've bought? Where can I improve? What are some pros and cons for this specific bulk parcel of Lego? Which, if you want to see the actual pieces, go ahead and check out that playlist. It's down in the description. Just several videos covering the phase 1, which was the initial sort from the actual Lego pieces to the other stuff and getting that sorted out. Phase 2 was then the cleaning of the Lego. Phase 3 was sorting into a few respective categories, and that's what we'll be seeing here with the breakdown. And I'm going to call this the one and only Phase 4 video. Is just a little bit of a summary and again looking at these numbers. So diving into that, I'm actually going to start up here in this upper left corner, and this takes a little look at overall sorting efficiency, kind of the multi-round that I like to do. So just working our way across here, we have the phase 1, 4 different categories here: usable Lego, broken Lego, knockoff brand, and other. And then there's 2 rounds of sorting. So round 1, again going back to that phase 1 of sorting, where I'm just getting as much of the official Lego bricks separate from the other stuff as possible. And there's some numbers from that round of sorting. Round 2 here represents the phase 3 part of the project, where I then go into my category breakdown. And during that process, I did come across a few mistakes that were made, and that was the opportunity to get that corrected. Just due to the thoroughness of this sort, I'm pretty confident that these were all of the errors, and there are no actual non-Lego items in my sorted inventory after that round 2. So there's always a very small margin that I could have missed something in those 2 rounds, and really it was more like 3 or 4 rounds worth because I did multiple stages, but that's kind of a good way to break it down for this chart. And now over on the right side, some of those results would be the percent efficiency and percent error. That first column with the efficiency is looking at how much of the round 1 compared to round 2 was correct. And so for the usable Lego efficiency, that was at almost 100%, 99.7. That's just saying about 1/3% is how much I was off in terms of getting all of the correct Lego brand stuff on the first try. Then working your way down, the broken Lego was probably the one I was the least efficient on. A lot of that did slip through into round 2, and actually taking a look at those additional broken pieces, some of them just had a little corner chipped off, or they were slightly bent, and it was hard to see on the first round. So that's the one where it's still Lego brand stuff, but it's not going to work as well if you're building with it. In some cases it's just completely destroyed, so there's no way to get it to work. Some cases it's just kind of bent, so arguably still usable, but not something I really want to stock. And then the last 2 is the knockoff brand and other. These are both over 100%, which just kind of means in general that a lot of knockoff brand, not a lot, but 3% knockoff brand ended up with the stuff that I counted as Lego in the first sort and actually was not. So that'd be a false positive. And then with the other brands, same thing there, just not quite as bad as the knockoff. So the imitation stuff, in some cases, very close color match, very close style match to the actual Lego pieces themselves. But again, looking for that Lego brand molded into the part, was able to find another 100 or so out of the 5,000 knockoff pieces after the round 2 sort. And then that last column here with the percent error is just showing that as kind of an isolated value, and it is also has a positive and negative sign. So the usable Lego is a negative because again, a lot of the stuff I had initially identified as Lego pieces was in fact knockoff, so about 1/3%. It's really not that much, but when you're up in these high number ranges, it does add up. Just looking at all of the thousands, tens of thousands of pieces that I did go through during this project. Again, looking at that broken number, 26%. It's a somewhat glaring error, but again, something that, as I sort through bins from my entire collection, not just this job lot, I come across this kind of thing. Then isolating the knockoff brand and the other percent error, kind of the 3% and the 2% there, pretty low overall, but I am glad that I got through multiple rounds and was able to kind of catch the stuff that does slip through on the first time. And this just goes to show, I think this is what happens when people do their eBay listings and say 99% Lego. They maybe have gone through one round of sorting, and that does catch a lot of it. Although in my experience, when I buy lots as advertised like that, it's actually closer to 95, 96%, and so this might be a little bit of an explanation for why that is. It does take multiple rounds to get all the way close to your 100% buildable good Lego parts. Okay, so zooming back out now, just kind of take an overall look at this. The total count you already saw in that initial look, but 37,530 usable Lego parts. Really solid numbers for this job lot. A lot of that's coming from smaller parts, so smaller plates. Minifig elements are playing a big role here. That's not always the case in bulk buys. Oftentimes, the people that are selling bulk Lego have already gone through to get minifig pieces out, but in this case, there were quite a few still in the mix, so those play a contribution as a smaller part there. We'll go ahead and jump to this bottom left corner and discuss that before I dive into the charts. With the price and value breakdowns, look at dollars per pound and then cents per piece. So there's kind of two things you can look at here. Since this does have a significant amount of non-Lego stuff, you could look at the breakdown for all the contents or for the Lego only. And it's not a huge difference, but it ended up being about 86% was the Lego content. So that does play a small role in that valuation. Dollars per pound worked out to just over $2 a pound here in both cases. You can see it's closer to 3 if you're looking at Lego only, but still within that range, $2 to $3 a pound. And then cents per piece, again, does make a slight variation as you consider all the contents or Lego only. All contents would be under 5 cents a piece, 0.5 cents a piece. Lego only is just over half of a penny per Lego piece. Really good value here. This is something I've tried to cover briefly in almost every video in the job lot, is how much of a difference it is to buy used Lego in bulk compared to new sealed Lego, and what you can get for the value in there is orders of magnitude. And it just goes to show, if you're willing to put in some of the value on your end, which comes in the form of the sorting and the cleaning, then a lot of that can be erased from you as a buyer upfront cost. But yeah, it all depends what you want to prioritize when you're buying Lego, and for me, this is what I would prefer, is to be the one putting in that work in the form of work and not in the form of an upfront cost for the bricks. I've got two different charts here. The first one on the left is the 4-part chart looking at those 4 categories from earlier in the video. We've got our usable Lego, 86.4%. Broken Lego is very small, but still a 0.3% of the total. Knockoff brand was just over 10%, 10.6, and then 2.6 worth of other stuff, kind of just generic, action figure parts, marbles, a couple of coins, just random stuff that gets mixed in. It's not really pretending to be Lego, but not something that I wanted to end up with in this purchase. Just looking back at the weight breakdown, if I remember correctly, I think that was 82% worth of Lego in the weight breakdown. So very similar numbers, and overall within the same kind of group, but not exactly the same, just corresponds to slightly different sizes of parts and weights of stuff. But yeah, 82, 86%, somewhere in there is how much actual Lego was in this purchase. And again, this goes to the value breakdown just looked at, with if you're looking at all contents or Lego only, that's where that 86 number plays a role. And then the final pie chart is probably the most interesting aspect that I haven't necessarily done for other book lots, but I wanted to do in this case, or had the opportunity to do so from the start. Was something that I tried to do with the initial sort, and then actually doing some logging in Rebrickable as you go through phase 3. I discussed that quite a bit. So the chart on the right side with all of the slices corresponds to the couple of columns over on the left side underneath that phase 3. 12 categories, 11 of those are specific part categories, and then the last one is some of the miscellaneous stuff that I didn't get in the initial grouping. So the ATTE was actually from this job lot, but it got pulled out for our 1,000 subscriber challenge prize, so I didn't have a chance to put those parts in the analysis. And then there were also some stickers, and some of the cloth and sail elements didn't really have a home in the other categories, and those all got grouped in that last purple slice there. But I have this somewhat color blocked. These colors do not correspond to the colors of the pieces. What ended up happening was I did get quite a few of them logged in Rebrickable, but I didn't get all of them. I didn't do this for every single piece in the job lot, to the point where I think just using Rebrickable to analyze the colors wouldn't have been as accurate. So I'm actually going to leave a color analysis out of this for now. The bricks general category in blue, and then kind of the plates general category in red. The yellow is kind of a slopes general category, and then Technic next to that is gray, and then the last other 3 slices in the greenish there are just kind of some other where you start to break down frames and shells, bars and clips, and minifigures. Don't have too much in common. A lot of the bars and clips were minifig accessories, but a lot of them also were more of a kind of almost a plate accessory. But yeah, we'll dive into each of the color groupings. And so the blue was split almost evenly by bricks and modified bricks, and that was interesting. I thought we'd see more bricks than modified bricks, but I think what happens is the volume, so quantity per lot of bricks, had a lot of 1x2s, a lot of 2x2 bricks, but within that category, relatively few different lots. So you kind of work through your general shapes, and then that's about it for the bricks. When you look at modified bricks, maybe a 1x1 headlight brick doesn't have as many quantity compared to the 1x2 regular brick, but there's quite a bit more variety in the different lots of modified bricks. And so you have different types of snot bricks, different types of clip bricks in there, and just different things that are all basically a version of a modified brick, but there's different subcategories within that as well. So kind of a split divide on that. Overall, that bricks category is about 16-17% of the total. The powerhouse here is the plates and tiles category. In fact, the single largest category is the general plates, which is just your unmodified regular work your way through the grid plates, and 20.6% of the entire lot was in this category. But then in that larger red sector, we also have the tiles and the modified plates. Actually, the modified plates making up more than either of the individual bricks categories. Quite a few in there as well. And this is where I didn't get a lot of these logged in or brickable. There's just the sheer volume of different lot varieties here with the bars, with the clips, with the upper and lower modified plates and stuff like that. Tiles also significant number of parts here, and that was something I remarked on late in the phase 3 video. Just had a bin of separate tiles after I was working through the plates for a while, and there were quite a few in there. So 5% of the total parts were tiles in this lot. It's higher than I thought we would see, but that is the beauty of having the raw numbers to work with, is you get the accurate representation. You can actually see, oh, well, that's how many pieces there were here. More than a third of the job lot here in this general plates type of part, quite significant amount, is this type of Lego piece making up all of the parts in this job lot. And working our way around to the yellow, we've got our slopes, and these are divided into regular and curved slopes. So 10% and 2% respectively there. Many more of the regular style slopes than the curved. Just looking at that breakdown, I think over the years, curved slopes were introduced relatively recently compared to regular, which regular is what I call something that doesn't have that bow shape. So it can be a compound slope, but all of the edges are kind of that geode shape where you have the established lines moving from corner to corner, and it's all kind of flat planes. And then the curved slopes are more of the arcs and the continuous surfaces that we've seen Lego expand that more recently. So I think if you were to buy, or if I were to buy a lot from more recent sets, you'd see a lot more curved slopes than are present in this lot, which is maybe from mid 2000s. So that would be an interesting study in, you buy a bulk of Lego sets from a certain era, you will see these sectors kind of flux over time in terms of what subcategories are more present in sets from one year to the next. So together, those 12% of the total, which is a moderate number, it's a decent amount of slopes, a couple thousand worth. Technic and tires was almost 14% here. This was the second largest of all the categories. So maybe a little bit unfair grouping the tires in here and putting that with the Technic. Would have been interesting to see if those were split. Would Technic still be number 2? I think it'd have a close running with the modified plates, which is down at 12%. But in any case, grouping these together here, we do get this second largest sector. Again, looking at a variety of different Technic parts, not necessarily a large quantity of any one Technic element, but this one did get its own video in the phase 3 as well, just looking through different Technic stuff that is out there, and that was in this lot. And then the other 4 slices here, that purple I'll just mention now, the ATTE and stickers. This honestly is something that should have been distributed in among the other slices, but it just didn't happen with those parts already gone from the lot when I started doing my analysis. I think overall it wouldn't have changed everything too significantly from where it's at right now. Just the total amount of pieces in that sector, even if they were all going towards one of the subcategories, it wouldn't have made too much of a difference. But realistically, those should be split among some of the bricks. Significant number would be in the plates, a few would be in the Technic, and something like that. And then the other 3% frames and shells. This was a category where I was trying to group where you start to get into the weeds with different element types. What families should this go into? Are these modified bricks? Are these modified plates? This was just stuff like windshields, door frames, window frames, canopies, cockpit elements, where there's kind of a thread running through all of these. It doesn't directly connect them, but it does make them more of a group than if they were trying to go with any one category. So I think that 3%, somewhat larger than the curve slopes category, but still not really a large category making up the overall parts. Now, in terms of volume and kind of the weight of these parts, this was taking up similar amount of space to the bricks in my sorted bins. So the frames and shells, the number of the parts themselves may be lower, but the actual size of the parts and the volume they take up is comparable to some of these other larger categories. So I will note that. Bars and clips was 7.1%. And this was kind of the opposite of the frames and shells that I was just talking about. Really smaller pieces in this lot, so not taking up as much room at all, but having a significant number of parts in total. A lot of minifig accessories, a lot of the really little stuff that ends up in miscellaneous containers, like the little levers, the little wrenches, and bars and clips. You know what kind of pieces those are. And then the last slice would be the minifigures, 6.4%, which was a bit surprising as I started to do the roundup for this data. Is looking at how much of the lot is actually minifigures here. And this is, I do want to reference the actual number of parts over on that phase 3 column. 2,398 total minifig pieces. This is counting torsos as 5 separate parts. So you break it down into the torso itself, left and right arms, and then 2 hands. The hands are identical. And then legs have 3 parts. They have the hip section and then left and right legs. I was also counting minifig heads, helmets, some hair, headgear, and some of the specialty minifig stuff as well. So some of the molded one-off or not as common, but still obviously supposed to be compatible with minifig stuff. So even completely excluding the accessories to the bars and clips category, there's still almost 2,400 minifig parts in this lot, which is a very high amount. It's something that to go and buy all these minifig pieces individually would cost many times over the total amount of the job lot, which is why I was happy to get them in this job lot. Something that wasn't as nice was how many of the minifig pieces go to minifigs that are not complete in the lot. So maybe I had a Lord of the Rings elf torso, but none of the other pieces for that minifig. So a lot of cases where I had something like that was kind of disappointing, but at the same time, I do have to acknowledge the benefit of getting this many minifigs in a bulk lot. It's very significant compared to a lot of other bulk lots I have bought in the past, where there's just a few or absolutely nothing in terms of minifigs. Again, going back to the people that sell bulk lots are also selling minifigs separately and trying to get their money's worth out of that, and so the pieces that they sell in bulk have already been picked through to get those minifigs out. And this not necessarily as much of a case in this purchase, but still missing a few things here and there would have made it really stellar. So that is the breakdown. Overall numbers, pie slices, sweet data that, for me, this does make up part of the enjoyment of the breakdown, the sorting process, the inventory, and the cataloging, is just to kind of get this visual aspect as well. And in general, just to know, like, what do I have? What did I buy? How much of my money is going towards Lego? How much of my money is going towards minifigs within this lot? That kind of thing. That's kind of the result of the analysis here, and possibly the other way around, the analysis, the result of wanting to know that information. So just sharing that as kind of the bookend to the Joblot series, the Joblot saga of content here on Brick System Brothers, and closing that chapter today with a look at some of that presented in visual form is running a little bit long as well, but kind of closing comments and remarks that I had on that, all working their way in here as well. I think a good way to present that today in this final one and only Phase 4 Joblot video. And with that, we'll wrap up the series. We'll close the playlist, and we will move on to some other stuff here on the channel as we get into 2022. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you around the channel.